Hey there, happy Thursday. You are watching DeProgram with Ted Rall and John Kiriakou. It is Thursday, December 18th, 2025. Thanks for joining us. John, thanks for joining us too. We had a little bit of tech trouble.
30 minutes. 30 minutes to get my computer up.
So
30
annoying.
minutes.
So annoying. So if you're a Mac wizard, you might want to chime in on the chat.
Yeah, appreciate it.
John has a somewhat aging computer, not so old that it shouldn't work, but old enough that it might stop working due to planned obsolescence. Mm-hmm. Is it a laptop or that's your desktop?
It's a great big desktop.
So it's not the kind that like been banging around South Asia or whatever.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I lost. Afghanistan claimed every laptop that I took there because the dust, the glacial flour, crazy. Yeah. It gets into everything. All right, so we got a lot to talk about. I know I always say that, but it's always true.
It's true.
I can't wait to talk to you about this story from the Associated Press about the Border Patrol, which is using these license plate scanners on the nation's highways. They're tracking all of us. They're tracking all of us wherever we go, and then they're pulling American citizens over, as well as other people, just because, and they're using pretextual stops.
Yeah.
So this is no longer about illegal immigrants or scumbags or people who are doing anything wrong. This is now about, it's George Orwell. It's classic. Last night, the president delivered an 18-minute primetime address to the nation. We'll talk about that. Centrist Republicans joined Democrats a little belatedly, but they're going to force a discharge petition vote about the Affordable Care Act subsidies. That vote comes up in the new year because Congress is out of session. But nevertheless, we'll talk about whether that has any import and whether it might save those of us like John and I who are about to get slammed by giant increases in our healthcare costs. And finally, there's trouble in Europe. We've seen this sort of thing before, but there's a new free trade deal, this one between 5 countries in Latin America and Europe. This is the Mercosur EU free trade deal. And farmers are really pissed, and they took to Brussels. They're burning things, blocking roads. You could almost call them riots. Here it would be called a riot. Here
in Greece, they're so upset about it that farmers have taken over the airport in Heraklion, Crete, and the airport's closed. No inbound or outbound flights.
Well, I'm on Team Farmer here for sure. But all right. So, and then of course, as always, please like, follow, and share the show. Before we get started here, I want to bring in Robbie just for our periodic reminder about the need and the desire to, if you'd like to see the show continue to grow and John and I be able to continue to do it, how this works. You guys have been very supportive and we appreciate you. But your money goes further when you're on Rumble than when you're on YouTube. And so I want to just bring Robbie on to explain that again, and then we'll get to it.
Howdy, y'all. So, Ted said it pretty sweet. The way that really the monetary model between YouTube and Rumble could not be any more different. Literally, for every dime that YouTube pays them, Rumble pays them 98 cents for you doing the exact same thing, which is watching the show. It is crazy, but that's how it works. YouTube treats the creator as a commodity that then is used to feed its advertisers. That's how YouTube makes its money. Whereas Rumble is more creator-centric, because they're trying to compete with YouTube. That means they need to capture that share. The way they capture the share is by having creators that you want to listen to, and then they actually pay the creators to make content on Rumble. So if you do the exact same thing that you're doing right now, which is watch us on Rumble, and a lot of people watch us on Rumble and YouTube at the same time, you can actually help John and Ted make more money without having to contribute a single dime of your own money, just literally by watching the content. Also, I just dropped a link to the Discord server. Big shout out to King Kong over there. He redid it. We will be doing another call-in show. I'll have to coordinate with John and Ted about when that's going to happen. And if y'all want to be able to chime in and talk to one of these two stellar people who I'm just privileged to be able to call my friends, you got to be on the Discord server because that's how I get your phone calls. So come over to Rumble. The weather's fine. You'll like it. It's not scary. I promise. And you'll enjoy it.
Thank you, Robbie. Okay, and if you have an ad for us, you can put that up in a minute or two. All right, so thanks for the donation over on YouTube from Umar Sheikh. 25, I believe those are UAE dirhams.
Thank you.
So let's get to it. John, what do you want to talk about first?
I think we should probably start with Donald Trump's address to the nation last night.
Sounds good.
It's not what I expected. Well, you know what? That's not true. In a way, it's what I expected. In a way, it's not what I expected. I thought that he would address Venezuela at least a little bit. Having said a day earlier that we're going to initiate a complete naval blockade, he called it the greatest armada ever in the history of South America. He never mentioned Venezuela.
No,
it was all about, well, it was apparently the purpose was to shore up the base and to talk about the economy. The economy's strong. He made a couple of sops. For example, checks for $1,776 to our warriors.
Warrior checks. I mean, God, that's so cheesy. And I thought it was cheesy when they wanted to make the New World Trade Center 1,776 feet high.
I hated the idea, and I still hate the idea. Yeah. But what we got last night was an angry Donald Trump, a Donald Trump who didn't appear to have any answers to some of these questions that the MAGA base has. And I really don't think he accomplished much last night. Do you?
No, I mean, look, full disclosure, I've gotten so used to being disappointed by hyped White House speeches that I didn't watch until this morning. Uh-huh. I was like, I know this is going to be another like wash, and it's not specific to Trump. All of these speeches are like that. But I was shocked that he didn't try to say anything about Venezuela. I mean, look, we very well may get pulled into a major conflict there. And there's no attempt to build up political will. We've talked about it here a bunch of times, and we'll keep talking about it. It's bizarre. It's almost like he knows it won't be popular, so there's no point doing it.
Yeah.
Just before we went on the air, John, the new inflation figures came out. Inflation is actually down a little more than people thought. That's really unfortunate timing for the president. I'm sure he's like, God damn it, why didn't I get that? Like, a day earlier. A day earlier would have really been helpful for my speech. He does. One of the things that I've always given the president credit for is really having his thumb on the pulse of the mood of the people. And that just doesn't seem to be true anymore. He's like now completely in some sort of bubble. And he's, not able to, he's not going to be able to talk his way out of the American people feeling broke.
Well, Ted,
and they do.
Let me ask you, why? Listen, Donald Trump has made a career of being underestimated.
Yes.
I think he's far, far brighter than people give him credit for being. And I think also that his political acumen,
his instincts are incredible.
Terrific instincts. So why does he appear to not get that the base is upset?
I don't know if he's just getting old. I mean, there's been some speculation that maybe, he's pre-Bidening out. Maybe he's just surrounded by too many yes men. That wasn't true in the first administration.
That's possible.
He had people at the table who didn't agree with everything that he had to say. Or he just thinks that he can. I mean, it must be the first instinct of every president to think, I can talk my way out of this. And he's a good talker, but you cannot convince people who feel that they're struggling financially that they're not. Yeah. And even if objectively they're wrong. I mean, I've always thought the American people were wrong about the Carter economy. Basically, yes, inflation was high, but wages were going up faster than inflation. Therefore, they shouldn't have been complaining. But Jimmy Carter, basically couldn't assuage that feeling. Yeah. That feeling is there. Now, in this particular case, that feeling is real because it's the culmination of, 70 years of increasing income inequality. And so it's true. And it's funny to me that there's no answer. I mean, and also it's funny to me that the Republicans can always come up with these sort of really symbolic, like Band-Aid on a bullet wound kind of solutions. I mean, like the $2,000 subsidy for, medical healthcare accounts that would help you pay your insurance. I mean, John, many people are paying $2,000 a month.
Yes.
In healthcare premiums.
Yes.
1 month.
Premiums 1 month.
1 month. Right. And that's
in
not going
addition to all their copays.
Right. And they're going to, and most of the time they have to get to $10,000 before their insurance company pays a dime because of the deductibles, right? Or more. So $2,000 is a pissant joke.
Ted,
$20,000 would be a pissant joke.
Ted, I left yesterday when we finished this show, and I went and I had dental surgery for the third time in the last 4 weeks.
Fun times.
It's awful. I pay $9.32 a month for my basic Obamacare, and I mean it's basic. And I pay another $32 a month for dental. So before I went in for the first time, I called Humana. I said, what is my dental cover? They said up to $2,000. I was like, okay, well, that's not much, but okay. I figured I have one tooth fixed and that's it. Well, it turned out I had an infection in my sinus. They had to drill through my jawbone. They pulled 5 teeth out altogether, 5 teeth. And I keep saying, listen, I can't afford this. I'm telling the dentist, I can't afford this. They're giving me discount. It still cost me $10,000 out of pocket. And yesterday
and you're insured.
And I'm insured. And yesterday the insurance dropped me.
Oh my God. Did they say why?
Yeah, because I used the benefits too quickly. They don't like me. They like people who buy dental insurance, but who don't need dental insurance.
Well, that is, I mean, that's funny that you should say that, because back when I worked at the Japanese bank, I remember going through all the bank accounts of and we had these accounts that were non-interest bearing that had hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh my God.
And I remember, and they all belonged to insurance companies. And I talked to my boss. I said, oh, should we contact these clients and get them into some interest bearing accounts? He said, fuck them. He goes, they don't care. He said, that's the insurance company model. Bear in mind, this is in the 80s and it's a Japanese company. He said, they collect premiums. They don't pay out. They have more money than they know what to do with. They literally are just shoveling it into a corner. They don't care or need interest.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Nothing's changed. Well, it's actually worse now. Let's go ahead and get through this ad. Get ready, fight fans. On December 20th, the biggest crossover boxing event of the year drops live from Dubai, only on Rumble Premium. It's Misfits Mania, the fight before Christmas, headlined by Andrew Tate stepping into the ring against heavyweight champion Chase Demore for Misfit Boxing's heavyweight title. This isn't just another bout. It's a global event with a stacked undercard and all-out action you can't miss. I'll be in there next year. Tune in exclusively on Rumble Premium and witness drama, power, and one of the most talked about clashes of the year. Mark your calendars December 20th because Misfits Mania is about to deliver fireworks. Sign up today.
May I add something?
Please, anytime.
I was asked to be on the undercard a week ago.
No, stop.
And I said, you have got to be kidding me. And
really?
the guy who approached me is a guy that I like and respect. He's involved in the planning. He said, Andrew Tate's at the top. Everybody's going to make a shitload of money. You got to be in. I said, are you kidding me? I'm 61 years old. I'm going to humiliate myself.
That's going to help your dental surgery situation.
Seriously, getting punched in the face by some blogger. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
I was joking hard when I said I was going to be on it. Oh my God.
And he's explaining it to me. He's like, no, hear me out. It's a really good idea. Everybody's going to make a ton of money. It's going to be in Atlantic City. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not.
I don't know how much money I would need for that, but it would be a lot.
It would have to cover all my new dental surgeries once I get my teeth knocked out.
It would be hard for me to think about that for under 6 figures, really. I mean, and I'm broke as shit, but like, yeah, wow, that's incredible. It's funny as hell, though. I'm literally crying. I'm laughing so hard. Jester One, thanks for the $5. Did you see there was another spoiled terror attack in Sydney a few hours ago?
Ooh, no, I did not.
No, maybe someone
okay.
can fill us in.
Check that out.
Thanks, Ben, for switching over to Rumble. Much appreciated. LMN, first day at Rumble today. Better video and sound here. Feel free to sign up.
Good.
I'm Tammy. I'm a very proud First Amendment supporter. I beg people to get comfortable with diverse opinions. Indeed, me too. Gabriel, can you speculate on a situation where a faction of the U.S. military would stage a coup? Yeah, I can. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I can. I can.
I think it would be. Sorry, go ahead.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Ted. Well, we touched on it a couple of weeks ago, where there was an attempt in 1933, 1934 by a group of half a dozen or so generals to overthrow Franklin Roosevelt because the generals believed Roosevelt was a socialist. And Smedley Butler reported it to Roosevelt.
He's the war is a racket guy.
Yes, exactly. A great hero, an unsung hero in American history, I think.
True.
So yeah, I could see a situation where
John, you muted yourself. You are muted. If you can demute, maybe can I demute you? Let me see. Oh yeah, you're demuted now, I think.
I don't know what happened. Can you hear me, Ted?
You're good now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're good. I hear you. I can't hear
anything.
Oh, I hear you.
Let me try and figure this out.
Oh, that's so strange. I'm going to type to John.
Ted, I'm going to get out and come back in because everything looks like it's up and running fine.
That sounds good. Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and answer that question while John reboots. So my take on this is I'm not sure there's many situations in which a coup would start cold, but I could definitely see, as we've seen in other revolutionary situations, where if there were a popular uprising, that the military or parts of the military might decide to chime in and basically bring the revolution over the finish line. Robbie, I'll just bring you in to talk about that. I mean, I could see, we've seen this in the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution. John, where are you? Add to stage. He's not connected, though. All right. Oh, there he is.
I hear you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm having these crazy computer problems.
I think it's time for a new computer. For sure.
But I think you're right.
That sucks. Yeah. But anyway, I was just saying that I think that we've seen revolutionary situations where the military finishes the revolution basically when, let's say, they're ordered to shoot at their fellow citizens and they hate their own government and they decide, I'm not going to kill, other patriots. I'm going to join them or I just refuse. That's a kind of coup that I can definitely see happening. I don't know, starting cold like now, I think it's extremely unlikely.
I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is if it ever got to the point, then states would really start looking hard and heavy at secession again, and that the country would just fragment. It would go like the way of Yugoslavia.
Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower, kind of.
No, I mean, people want a national divorce. I mean, serious question here, honest to God. What exactly does Montana have in common with Massachusetts? The answer is
both start with M. There's alliteration.
I mean, but culturally, politically, demographically, there's nothing there. There's no glue to hold it together.
You could say the same thing about any country that's not a microstate like Liechtenstein, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like what do the Urals
have country?
What do the Urals have to do with St. Petersburg? Mm-hmm. What do they have in common? What does La France profonde, like deep France, have to do with Paris or Nice? Nothing.
Well, you just have your history. And I also know you have a population with at least a shared history and a shared culture. I mean,
Montana and Massachusetts both speak English. They're both predominantly white. There's definitely European, Western European ancestry. I mean, there's definitely cultural touchstones.
Yeah, but I mean, let's just take it a step further because of the secession. I mean, if it happens, And again, for the record, I hope that I'm wrong. I'd rather things not fall apart. But if it does, it would be regional. I think is what would happen. Is I could see New England going its own way. What does New England have in common with the Bible Belt?
The sci-fi writer Octavia Butler wrote a trilogy, which is the first one I think is called The Parable of the Sower. And basically that's her scenario. She basically says she sees the states, collapsing economically and then breaking into regional nations, sort of like the USSR in 1991.
Yeah. Well, it's like no Human Productions says that he's more than happy to divorce from Robbie's Montana. I'm sure the feeling's mutual. I don't know who you are, but I have no interest in being in.
Don't knock Montana until you've tried it. It's a beautiful state. I wouldn't want to lose it.
Yeah, I mean it's cultural though, right? Because if you have a group of people that are culturally conservative, that are still religious, that cling to those old, kind of what Obama said, the bitter clingers, and then you have another section of the country. America's huge. It's a continental nation, and I can just 100% just see it falling apart.
Sure, eventually.
I disagree though. I can't see it falling apart. First of all, one of the reasons why there will never be secession, besides the fact that it's unconstitutional.
It's constitutional.
It's not constitutional.
This would be a fun conversation to have one day on a premium episode.
But you can have it right now if you want.
But besides that, the states that would secede are the shithole states for the most part. I mean, they're states that can't. They rank last in economic growth. They rank last in education. They rank last in medical care.
They're broke.
I mean,
Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana.
Look at Kentucky. I just read the other day that for every $1 that Kentucky sends to Washington in federal taxes, it gets $1.24 back in what amounts to federal welfare. Listen, I'm from Virginia, the sophisticated part of Virginia. I am very happy not to subsidize these idiots in Mississippi and Alabama and Kentucky and places like that. If they want to secede, they'll never make it.
Yep. Well, listen, as far as that goes, I'm right there with you. I mean, there should not be any federal funding going to the states at all. None. Sink or swim. Figure it out. Clean up your own house. Listen, I'm dead serious.
Then what's the point of having a country then, right?
Yeah, we don't have a viable country then.
Well, that's the whole. Well, we're supposed to be a federal republic, right? It's supposed to be a union of sovereign states united in a federal union. The entire point of the federal government originally was for the common defense and regulating the cost of currency.
Yes.
I mean, that's what it was all about.
Yes.
And as far as secession, let's just go ahead and have this now. The 9th and 10th Amendments both specifically say that whatever power is not given to the federal government is reserved to the people and the states. And the founders thought it was so important that they mentioned it twice. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say secession is illegal. Also for a historical record, the founding fathers were secessionists. They seceded from the British Empire. So to say that secession is illegal, you have to show me in the Constitution where it says a state can't go, where you can't leave. It's not a Roach Motel.
I still remember that logo in Spanish. Las cucarachas entran, pero no pueden salir. I lived in New York in the 80s. All right, Robbie, I'm taking you out here. Okay. By the way, there has been a terrorist plot foiled in Australia recently. So, we probably should touch upon this. I mean, ISIS, never really went away. There's something, obviously the self-radicalization model, it has a strength and a weakness, right? The strength is that your former colleagues at agencies like the CIA can't track you, right? Like if you join ISIS, it's kind of like you download the zip file with your own ISIS flag that you print out and you duct tape up to the wall of your shitty apartment. You read a stupid statement pledging fealty to the Islamic State. You go out and kill a bunch of innocent people, and then the cops shoot you, and rinse, lather, repeat. But it's really hard to stop people who want to do that because the only place that the only people who have that information is the people themselves. It's in their brain.
Yes.
And then, but on the other hand, they can't really do anything in a coordinated, organized way like a group like Hezbollah or Hamas or anything like that. They can't do big things all at once. They can just do, it's all individual. It's kind of like why Occupy Wall Street was worthless. It's leaderless.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future, if any, of ISIS? I mean, they once controlled what was effectively half of Syria, half of Iraq. That's a big country, effectively, but they're not, now they're back to being a regular terrorist group, although they still control, it seems like they still control areas, right?
They do.
Wouldn't that be fair to say?
They do. I think that the future of ISIS is the same as the future of Al-Qaeda. We're not at the end of Al-Qaeda right now. We're in a lull. But what's going to end up having to happen is individual countries are going to have to declare war again on ISIS, like many countries did in Iraq and Syria. And they're going to have to just smother it. I mean, that's the only way to do it. And the part of the problem is ISIS, like Al-Qaeda, like so many of these other groups, are ideas rather than they are standing armies. And so how do you kill an idea? I think in the end, Ted, I think that they'll self-destruct because invariably they'll undergo leadership challenges. And, 2 people or 3 people at the same time are going to want to lead the group, and then they're going to end up going to war with each other. But one of the things that I think we should be worried about over the long term is individual ISIS affiliated or ISIS related cells in places like, well, we're already seeing Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, the Philippines, Indonesia, Australia.
ISIS-K
now.
is more like a traditional group in
it's
Central
more like
Asia.
a traditional group. That's right.
ISIS Khorasan.
So this is going to be a long-term thing. It's not going to be easy.
No. As long as there's a sense of grievance, on the part of Muslims, and the West isn't very good at alleviating that sense.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit more about Trump. So he moved his presidential Hall of Fame plaques outside to the outside of the building.
Did you see? Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. And basically, go ahead, please.
Actually, you go ahead and explain it. I'm going to pull it up because I want to read some of it.
Okay, great. So basically, this thing was inside. There has traditionally been a hallway in the White House where there's portraits of the former presidents. Trump, as anybody who's watching this show is aware, had this trolling photo of like the auto pen for Biden and stuff like that. But he upped the ante by moving these plaques to the outside of the building, affixing them to the wall outside where the Rose Garden.
And these are very expensive, like bronze plaques, like historical markers. May I interrupt you and read you Joe Biden?
Please. And I assume we're paying for them.
Of course. Here's Joe Biden's presidential plaque in the White House. Nicknamed both Sleepy Joe and Crooked Joe, Joe Biden was dominated by his radical left handlers. They and their allies in the fake news media attempted to cover up his severe mental decline and his unprecedented use of the auto pen. And words are just randomly capitalized. Following his humiliating debate with President Trump, in the big June 2024 debate, he was forced to withdraw from his campaign for re-election in utter disgrace. Biden weaponized law enforcement against his political opponent, singular, while also persecuting many other innocent people. He left office issuing blanket pardons to radical Democrat criminals and thugs, as well as members of the Biden crime family. But despite it all, President Donald J. Trump would get reelected in a landslide and would save America. What do you say? I mean, what can you even say to something like that?
I know, and it's a plaque. I mean, so, okay. I mean, obviously that's hilarious on a number of levels. I don't need to explain them. But question, this is a president who's almost 80 years old. He is very interested in his legacy. That's why he wants to have he wants to be on coinage. He wants to, have his own Arc de Triomphe. He's really, everybody who's president's interested in their legacy, but he's really interested. He's got to know that those plaques are coming down the second he's gone.
Yeah.
Even a President Vance has to take them down.
Absolutely.
It's so, like, why bother? What's the point here? Is he losing it?
I don't know. And I'll add another thing. This is not an original thought. This was raised by the New York Times last night, and I happen to agree. But the way these are written, with randomly capitalized words, lots of exclamation points, it convinces me that he wrote them.
Oh, 100%.
The President of the United States has the time,
right,
to write these himself.
Executive time.
I don't even have words. I don't even know what to say.
Look, I'm glad you brought that up, because it always pisses me off when, the presidents don't work hard.
In fact, we made fun of Reagan. Remember? I remember Time Magazine having a cover story called "The 9 to 5 Presidency," and people were like, "What do you mean he's only going to work from 9 to 5? He's got a whole country to run."
Right.
Well, now.
Yeah, my father told me that when he had to write memos for Reagan, that there was a rule that the memos couldn't be more than a page long, or Reagan would refuse to read them. That people would try
George W. Bush.
They would try to cheat and make a bigger margin, and Reagan would be like,
no. I remember when Bill Clinton was elected, they told us that we could make things longer, but that the president's preferred font was Calibri 14. 14.
That's big.
Yeah.
12 is normal. 11 is normal. Wow. Mm-hmm. So, honestly, I don't think, my feeling is, if I were president of the United States, you'd be getting peak Ted Rall morning, noon, and night. I'd be up at 5 a.m, working like a bastard for the American people until 2 a.m, every fucking night.
And that's how George H.W. Bush was. My ex-wife once was called to brief Bush, and she just assumed that she would go over to the White House with the PDB briefer for the 7 o'clock briefing. He wanted her at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
She went up into the residence. She was escorted up into the residence, and President Bush and Barbara Bush, in their bathrobes and slippers at the table, they served breakfast to my ex-wife, and she briefed them over scrambled eggs and bacon.
I like it.
Yeah. I had a lot of respect for that.
That's the right work ethic. Mm-hmm. I don't want them to golf. I don't want them to watch sporting events.
No.
I don't want them to be like, you need some downtime, but bare minimum. Like, seriously, there's too much to do. Once you have the unemployment rate down to 0%, once there's no housing shortage, there's not a single homeless person, okay, maybe you can chill a little more. But, this isn't Switzerland. We've got major problems here. All right. So while we're on the subject of domestic politics, so a handful of centrist Republicans have crossed over in the House of Representatives, joined the Democrats. They 219. They got their discharge petition through. So when the new session of Congress opens up in January, there's going to be a vote on these Affordable Care Act subsidies that expired and jacked up the Obamacare, premium rates for millions of Americans. Mm-hmm. Is that going to pass?
Yeah, it'll pass, but I think Trump is going to veto it.
And will there be political consequences for that in the midterms?
Yes. Think of it this way too. This is a very clearly divided issue, right? Mm-hmm. Every Democrat supports it. Four Republicans support it. That's enough to discharge it from committee. It'll pass by a vote or two, right? It'll probably pass the Senate because it's an election year, and most of the people running for re-election in 2026 are Republicans, right? The Republicans have a lot of seats that a year ago looked safe that this year, may not look as safe. But then Trump will veto it.
It just seems like political suicide. I mean,
I totally
I don't
agree.
understand.
I totally
Republicans,
agree.
save healthcare. You can.
Yeah, you can. You can, or
health.
Throw us this lifeline of an extension in subsidies until you can repeal and replace, as they have been saying for the last, longer than that, 9 years.
Longer than that,
yeah.
9 years?
Since Trump. Trump came in the first time talking about repeal and
2016. Yeah, 9 years. Madison Durex, thanks for the money. Just learned that I grew up near your hometown, John.
Right.
Which made me wonder if you've ever been to a tiny town named East Liverpool, Ohio.
And I just wrote a little note back. I love East Liverpool. My mom and I used to drive to East Liverpool because they have an amazing antique mall there.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, it's amazing.
You're speaking my language.
Terrific. And there's a lot of, if you like Northeast Ohio pottery, especially from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it's
like
all
that
over the place.
Zanesville stuff.
Zanesville, exactly. The last time I passed through Zanesville, it was about a year ago, and there was a pottery outlet on the left of Interstate 76. So I got off, and it's all new crap that's not made in Zanesville. No.
That blows.
Yeah.
I hate fake shit like that.
I do too.
Bait and switch. Okay, so and by the way, we're letting John go 5 minutes early because he's got to go run off and do something.
Yeah. Thanks
Benny
for that.
Strings, thanks for the $5. Imagine turning on the fight Saturday night and seeing John Kiriakou fighting on Island Boy. You guys are awesome. Thanks
oh my God, I would love to fight an Island Boy. That I would actually do.
I would fight Austin Butner.
Because the Island Boys, what do they weigh? Like 90 pounds? And their faces just look like they're begging for a beating.
But they might be quick.
Yeah, but they're little twinks.
Although I have to say, I mean, when I was young, I remember a couple of times I ended up in fist fights with, like, I was like in my 20s. And I ended up with like a fight in the guy in the Times Square subway station. He was like 45. And I was like amazed at how fucking hard it was. Because it's like older guys, they're economical in their fighting. They don't flail. And they're strong and they make things count and they can take pain. So,
I wrote that in my second book as one of my 20 CIA rules to live by is your body can take a lot more pain than your brain thinks it can.
Yeah. And you learn that as you get older. I mean, just think about how intense pain is when you're a kid. Like if you have a sore throat or something, you think you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And, you said the same exact thing when you're 60. You're like, it sucks, but you're going to get over it. Whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I've only been in one fight in my life.
Really?
And I'm a little bit ashamed to say that I put the guy in a coma. And the only reason I got away with it.
Why are you ashamed of that?
Yeah, the only reason I wrote about it in my first book. The only reason I got away with it was because I had diplomatic immunity.
Oh, God.
Uh-huh.
Well,
it was bad.
Yeah. Well, I put a guy in a coma. I'm not ashamed. He tried to break into my apartment. He might have
that's
killed me.
Different.
I didn't give a shit about him.
This guy called my first wife a whore, and he did it on the day I found out she was cheating on me, and I just lost it. I lost it like a crazy person.
Did you? Because he won't even say it. Okay, it says it speaks for itself. Oh my God. Okay. Thanks, Justin, for the compliment. Paris, Tennessee, indeed. Will the Epstein files be released? Greg Battis. I'd say some. What do you think?
Wow. My heart says, oh, of course they will be. It's all about the children. My head says, absolutely not. Not when both parties are implicated. Senior members of both parties are implicated. You'd have to have like a complete political outsider win the presidency to finally come in and say, come on, let's be honest about this and just release it.
I feel like the only solution in American history for that, what you need is a Theodore Roosevelt situation where someone gets to be vice president because they're trying to sideline him because he's harassed, because he's out of control. And then something happens to the president and he ascends. That's the only way you get like really cool presidents.
That's it.
What a system. Is it rational? Ted, you would need to rest. The body physically needs to rest. The mind needs to clear out the gunk. Otherwise, there will be burnout. The West Wing said staff are in a sprint. West Wing said staff are in a sprint. President runs a marathon. Fair. And I think, for example, presidents like George W. Bush, who had a rigid exercise regimen, that's the way to handle that, right? Like sound mind, sound body. You definitely want to be in good shape. But rest sleep is important. Fucking around is not important.
Yeah, that's right.
Watching sports, like you can do that. Angela Falala, maybe someday we get a Ted and John Antique Show. We can do that.
That would be fun. People
Rumble
keep
Premium.
telling me I should do short videos where I just walk through some of the cemeteries that I cover in my books.
Ooh, I like that.
And do, video tours. But you and I
that.
Could do something like that at an antique mall.
Yeah, we could totally do that. I'll meet you at an antique mall. We could also show off some of our things because we both have some interesting
Well, I'll tell you something
items.
I bought the other day that I'm absolutely thrilled with. It's upstairs, so I can't just turn around and grab it. But I scan all my receipts on my phone with this thing called Fetch, and it gives me points. And so I saved up enough points for 4 $150 eBay gift cards. It took me 2 years, but I saved it up. And I bought a copy of the New York Herald newspaper from April 15th, 1865. And it says President shot at the top. Yeah, and it has a picture of Lincoln. And then each column is an update. Seward stabbed repeatedly, expected
and it's
to
like
live.
14 columns across, right? Like super thin.
Oh, really, really, really narrow columns.
No
and very small.
pictures.
No pictures. Yeah, but it's all about. And then there's an update at the bottom saying President pronounced dead at 6:15 a.m.
Wow, that's chilling. Did you have? Does that paper have? Is it like on that? Is it still white because it's that old rag? You know how there's like old, like 19th century newspapers.
Oh,
are
yeah.
beautiful because they're white.
They also sent me an unframed one. Hold on.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, because one of the things about what I was really surprised, if you're old enough to have read a print newspaper in this country, you're thinking of high acid, yellowed paper that yellows quickly. But these I have old New York Timeses from the 1870s, and
this is the Baltimore Sun.
Wow.
Saturday, April 15th, 1865.
Look how beautiful it is. It's like it came
beautiful.
out a day or two ago.
See right here. It says postscript, death of President Lincoln, War Department, Washington, D.C., April 15th, Major General Dix of New York, quote, President Lincoln died this morning at 32 minutes after 7 o'clock. Signed E.M. Stanton, Secretary of War.
And look how small it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it was. That's how that was the style.
Yeah, look at the columns. This is the front page.
That's crazy. Yeah. I love the way that looks, though.
So cool, huh?
By the way, we are currently number 8 on Rumble.
Hey.
So thank you for supporting us there. Let's see. Robin Riley, you get a pass for that fight. He definitely opened his mouth on the wrong day. That's true.
Yeah, and I've said that in the book. Any other day, I would have just said, get out of here. What's the matter with you, idiot? But
yeah, Robbie said he has his great-grandfather's Confederate saber. It's true. Wow. I saw it while I was there, and it's cool. It's very, very awesome.
That is cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, we could definitely do antique, like show and tell, for sure. Okay, so I do not want to let you go without us talking about the Border Patrol situation.
Yeah, this is
so. The AP, good for them. They did some investigative journalism. They're monitoring millions of Americans nationwide in this secret program. So basically, I wrote about this and others have written about it. I put it in my Snowden book. But there's a system of license. Basically, local police departments for years have had these these license plate scanners that you don't see. But they set them up on the side of the road. Sometimes they're disguised as those like you've been driving, shows you how fast you've been driving machines. But supplementing those are now a system of Border Patrol units that are set up on highways and state routes and all over the country that basically scan your plate as you go by. All this data, it scoops up everything, all goes up into central computers, and AI, basically algorithms calculate patterns, and then spits out stuff that they deem suspicious for whatever reason. Maybe this person's involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking, who knows what they're up to. And so what they do, and this is all like verified, is they call the Border Patrol will say, "How Kiriakou, we want Kiriakou pulled over."
Yep.
Do a pretextual stop. So they wait for John to drive down the road, and then local PD comes up with something. There's literally, for example, the state of Texas, thousands of possible pretextual reasons to stop his car. It could be like the little Christmas tree deodorizer is blocking his view. That's been used repeatedly.
Oh, yeah.
Speeding 2 miles an hour over the speed limit, it's still speeding. Stuff like that. We're checking and then the person gets questioned at length. There's videos of these things happening over and over. And most people, and I know, John, you'll have stuff to say about this, most people answer all these questions. Where are you going? Where are you coming from?
None of your doggone business.
What do you do for a living? What are you up to? Do you know why I stopped you? All those things, right? And basically people have been detained. They've been arrested. And here's the thing. Most Americans don't know that, first of all, the U.S. Border Patrol works legally anywhere within 100-mile border distance from the United States border. That's 90% of the American population lives within 100 miles of a U.S. international border with Canada, Mexico, the Atlantic, or the Pacific Oceans, right?
Yep,
and
that's right.
And that's like, for example, everyone on Long Island, New York, right? Like everyone in like the Boston metro area, the New York metro area, everyone in South Florida, everyone. Mm-hmm. And so it's 100 miles is big. This goes even further. The AP found Border Patrol operating 200-300 miles away from U.S. borders, and they're scooping up everyone. It's really Orwellian. And anyway, I have a possible solution to this, but John, what do you think? Thoughts?
I think that so long as whoever happens to occupy the White House doesn't crack down on this from a policy standpoint, mm-hmm. they're going to do exactly what federal agencies and departments do, just keep pushing the legal envelope, pushing until something bad happens and the Supreme Court or the Congress pushes back. They're out of control and they're going to remain out of control.
Well, what you said is 100% correct. In the meantime, these cameras are hidden in barrels, those orange and white striped barrels on the side of the road. So that's why God invented sledgehammers, which are one of my favorite toys. And everyone should own one. And then there was a guy in LA who used to have a mask, and he would like pull up with a pickup truck with a ladder in front where there's traffic cameras, and go up to the camera and smash it with a ball peen hammer. And it drove the LAPD crazy because no one would report him or say anything about him. Good. He was like, we all love you. You're a god. And anyway, but the other thing is we need to follow the Kiriakou rule. If no one talked, they would have to stop doing this because it would be a waste of money. Mm-hmm. If everybody was just like, I respectfully decline to answer your questions.
That's it. That's it right there. Yeah.
Over and over and over.
I'm represented by counsel and I don't speak with law enforcement.
The end. I mean, and so that's the thing. It's really especially tempting especially people who are up to nothing bad are the people who need to do this. They're the most protected.
Yeah,
they are. And so, so if you get pulled over and this happens to you, it probably will happen to someone who hears us today. Don't cooperate.
Yeah.
Don't fight. Don't put up resistance. Don't be respectful, but you don't have to answer their questions.
That's right. That's right.
Let's see. Question for you, John. What martial art did they? Oh, I like this from Umar Sheikh. What martial art did they train you at the agency? Also, what's your favorite pistol?
The only martial arts training I got at the agency was jujitsu, and it was like introductory jujitsu. It was every day for 2 hours for 6 weeks. So it was good. The pistols that they originally trained us on were the Browning 9mm, which we switched out to the Glock, and the Smith & Wesson 38 snub nose. And then we also got certified in the Remington pump action 12 gauge.
But the question was, which one is your favorite?
Oh, the Glock is just cuts like butter. Oh my God, there's no kick. It's the Browning, the hammer would snap back and hit me right here in the webbing between my thumb and my forefinger and cause it to bleed.
Oh God.
Yeah. And I remember telling the guys in training, like, this is going to be a problem for me. We're shooting 1,500, 2,000 rounds a day. It just tore up my hand. And then we switched.
Is that specific to you, to something about your hands?
It's like 10% of people, they told me, have a problem like that. And so as an agency, we switched it to the Glock. And then that's what I ended up buying myself, was a Glock. It was fantastic.
And I think that's the service sidearm of the NYPD, if I'm not mistaken. That was very controversial.
You have to forgive me, but I must run to Union Station.
You must.
And I will see everybody tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much, John.
Thanks, Ted.
Have a good train trip.
Thanks,
I always
buddy.
love the train.
Me
Okay.
too.
Anyway. All right. So we're sitting in the John chair. Robbie, do we have any ads I need to read before we continue?
Let me check and see if they gave us a new one. Yes, indeed. Just 1 second. I'll pop it up for you. Do you want me to read it, or you want to read it?
Go ahead. You can read it.
Okay. Looking for a comfortable but unique option for your gaming setup? Check out TechnisportUSA.com. With a wide range of ergonomic chairs and an array of colors, you'll definitely bring your next setup to the next level. Always comfy, never boring. Technisport. Use code RUMBLE for 10% off your entire order. Short, sweet, and to the point for a guy with a southern drawl. I like it.
That's not bad at all. So we saved a topic that John and I didn't get to, but I had a feeling you'd have opinions about this too. So there's protests right now in Brussels over this free trade deal. As you know, Robbie, free trade deals make my blood boil. NAFTA was the last nail in the coffin of the industrialized Midwest, where John and I grew up. And anyway, so this is a deal that would eliminate tariffs on all goods traded between the EU and Mercosur nations, which include Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia, over the course of 15 years. Now, the EU has always been very protectionist for its farmers, and it shows. I mean, the food is expensive, but it's great. You know, I mean, you go to any European country, spend a month, eat normally, eat as much and drink as much as you'd feel like. Don't go on a diet, quote unquote. Just eat and be yourself. You will come back looking better. Your pallor will be better. You're going to lose a little bit of weight. You're going to have less inflammation. You'll probably be less sick. You're just going to feel good because the food is better. Now, I have no comment about South American food since I've never been there, so I can't say anything about that. But clearly, incomes are lower there. So even with the cost of transporting, fruits and vegetables and other foodstuffs from Latin America to Europe, it's going to be cheaper. It's going to undermine the pricing of European farmers. So they're pissed off. They're burning shit in the streets. They're blocking roads in Brussels. And as John said, there's unrest in Greece. I know there's been some unrest in France about this. It just seems like the EU is just trying to continue these same failed trade policies that fucked over workers over the course of years. And, they haven't learned their lesson.
Internationalism is a poison. I mean, seriously, how do you say that you hate your people without saying that you hate your people? By putting them out of work, by driving down their wages, by subsidizing people, not even in another country, but on another continent, at your people's expense. Now, I'm 100% European farmer. Go out there and paint those buildings brown, block everything, do what you got to do, raise hell, and the cat is here to
Hello, kitty.
So here's Fernie, the better half.
People have been asking about Clovis, my better half, but he's cold these days. So he's been spending, the better part of his days like an American president, sleeping. And
I don't blame him.
Under the covers of the bed, he clambers underneath and lies flat. And it's dangerous because there's like a cat lump, and if you don't plop on the bed, you might kill your cat.
But as far as the whole European thing goes, honest to God, now, Trump, when he ran in 2016, back when I supported him, he ran on the pledge of putting the American people first. The European people, they need to realize that the European Union, that body that you are ceding your authority to, your autonomy to, your sovereignty to, does not care about you. I think that if I had it my way, the European Union would end tomorrow, and the European nations would become sovereign. They become independent. They would actually start setting up for their own interests, and they would just put this global experiment in the trash can where it belongs and never look back.
I would have no problem with that at all. I do like to pat myself on the back for being right earlier than others. And, I'm a French citizen, and when the EU was formed, it was a joint venture between France and Germany, first and foremost, right? They were the two principal members. And when France voted on this, it was a plebiscite. I voted no. I was like, this is and back then voting in the French election was kind of hard. Now you can do it online. But I was so pissed about it. It's like, wait, you're getting rid of the franc? Like, why would you do that? I have no idea. I don't understand. And why would you get rid of your sovereignty? Why would you, agree to rules that you didn't vote upon, like some weird, Brussels conference? I don't know. So, I have to think that at a certain point, the political downside of these deals, will exceed whatever financial corruption benefit the elites receive from it. But we're not there yet, are we?
No, we're not there. And the thing is, I honestly don't think that the leaders in Brussels or in Paris or in Berlin, I honestly don't think that they care. I think that the same mentality that our leadership here in the United States has. We're getting funded, we're being donors, we're going to these fancy parties, we're going to the fancy dinners, we're rubbing elbows with the fancy people. I don't give a crap about what some guy outside on the street thinks, until all of a sudden that guy on the street's had enough and they start turning your country off.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that but the thing is, Europe has a tradition of revolution. The elites have to know that. They read their history books. It's not like it's that old. I mean, France almost burned to the ground in 1968.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing, though: the generation that we have now, it's all post World War II. The exception of some of the boomers are hanging out. You're taught that nationalism is a bad thing. Nationalism is racist. If you want to be French or English or Welsh or Scottish or German, then you are a xenophobic bigot. Then you just sit down, shut up, take your lumps, and accept multiculturalism, and you get better food to kind of make up for the rape gangs. I reject that.
And I have a question that I want to answer tomorrow about like training to travel overseas. How do I prepare for it? I'll try to get to that tomorrow if I remember. If not, feel free to post it again. Everyone, we will be back tomorrow with John and I Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. We're here Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern every week, every day. Thanks for joining, liking, following, sharing the show. Please stay tuned to the TMI show with Ted Rall and Manila Chan. Yeah, that's me, the same Ted Rall. Robbie will be in the wings there as well. And thanks for, as usual. See you soon.